when we finished up in the last tutorial, we actually finished creating our T account and assembling our general ledger. So we had just finished step 2 of the accounting cycle. We're now moving on to step 3. I know we're slowly getting around this 7-step accounting cycle. I know you're really eager to start your trial balance, so we're actually going to minimize this and bring forth the trial balance. So I've actually created a very simple trial balance. Once you understand the principle of how to actually create a trial balance, you can definitely create a longer one. It's not any more difficult. It's pretty simple to create a much longer trial balance. The same idea applies in that situation. So let's actually use the entries and the T accounts that we used in the last presentation. So the entries I have listed above, and these are the T accounts. So we have a journal entry for advertising, a journal entry for cash in advance for a job we had not yet performed, and purchasing inventory on accounts. And we have all of the respective T accounts listed below. We have cash, inventory, accounts payable, unearned revenue, and advertising expense. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually, let me just create a new layer. We're going to take the final balances of these T accounts, and we're going to transfer them to the trial balance, because the trial balance, we're just going to list our debits and our credits and make sure that our debits equal our credits, and that way it will balance. That's why it's actually called a trial balance. So pretty simple. Let's just take the numbers, and we have a debit entry of cash 2,500, so let's just transfer that over here under the debit column. Inventory 2,000. Accounts payable, you'll see, is a credit entry, so make sure you move to the other side, listed as a credit, because it's liabilities and payables. Normal balance is a credit. Unearned revenue 2,500 is going to be a credit as well. Unearned revenue, normal balance, is a credit as well. And advertising expense is going to be a debit entry, because the normal balance of expense accounts are debits. And once you actually add up each of the individual columns, you'll see 2,500 plus 2,000 plus 300 is going to be $4,800 worth of debits. And on the right side, 2,300 plus 2,500 is going to be $4,800 worth of credits. So there you go, right there. We have our debits equaling our credits, and our trial balance, for the most part, was performed correctly. I'll actually show in a second how there can be errors with the trial balance. I'm just going to get rid of this really quickly. Before I talk about the errors, I just wanted to note one thing, and that is, if you look at these accounts right here, I think I went over this in one of the previous tutorials, but I'm going to go over it again, and that is the order in which we list these accounts is going to be assets to equity. So we start off with cash, inventory, and then we hit liabilities, because liabilities is the second element, or the second element in which we'll prepare in our trial balance, and then we'll finally hit the equity accounts, which are like expenses and revenues and retained earnings, except we don't have retained earnings in this trial balance. So make sure to always list your accounts in the order of assets to equity accounts. Now let's go over the errors really quickly. It's just popped up. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, let's talk about errors. Okay, so some errors we might have are errors actually. Well, one error could be a transposition error. So what that basically means is that if we have an entry that should be like, this would be an entry for a receivable and for earning some revenue. So maybe we were actually supposed to debit a receivable and credit a revenue for $12 each, but instead we use $9. In this case, this would balance on the trial balance, because we would have $9 on a debit and the credit side. But the thing is, we were supposed to use $12. So even though it would balance on the trial balance, this would be an error. So you can see how the trial balance doesn't pick up on some of these specific errors. Another one might be a duplicate entry. So if we have the example in the last one, let's say we actually used the right amount and the right accounts receivable and revenue to earn some revenue on account. But the thing is, maybe we have repeated the entry and we actually created it twice because we're not that accurate with our entries, and we're kind of all over the place. So this would be another error, because we created a duplicate entry and it's going to actually overstate the debits and the credits even though they will balance. Another one might be the wrong accounts being used, which are let's say instead of accounts receivable we used cash and revenue, even though this was a transaction that should have been on account. So we use the right amounts too, and it will balance. Debits will equal credits, but the wrong account, which is cash, was used. In this case, this is another error. And I've actually gotten all of these different types of errors off of the wiki page for trial balances, so you can of course go there. There's a bunch more errors if you want to know all of them. I just listed a few to see how the trial balance doesn't cover all errors. It just basically confirms that the debits equal the credits. So in the next tutorial we're going to be talking about adjusting entries, which are definitely, I would say, the hardest, probably one or two of the hardest things of the accounting cycle. So I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Make sure to like all these videos and help with any comments. Thanks.